But first, we have to talk about what's happening in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Give you a bit of an illicit history of that region and conflict. And in order to do that, we need to understand some key dynamics. We need to understand the Soviet invasion, the U.S. Saudi orchestrated war against the Soviet invasion, the Mujahideen, and the heroin conflict that fuels so much of the war in Afghanistan today. We are 18 years into the U.S. invasion in Afghanistan, which took place after September 11th. Countless civilian lives, endless injuries, deaths of U.S. soldiers and NATO soldiers, a further destabilized and significantly reconfigured Pakistan in terms of enhanced power for its inter-services agencies, its intelligence apparatus, and so forth. But in order to understand the 2001 invasion to today, which spawned George W. Bush's global war on terror, we need to go back to the 1980s. Afghanistan has been at war in some form or another since 1978. First, Soviet troops were deployed there in the late 1970s to shore up a communist government, which did introduce significant reforms as well as significant repression. There was a Mujahideen uprising. The CIA, and at that point the Carter administration and National Security Advisor Zeb Brzezinski, saw an opportunity to do with the Soviet Union what had happened to the United States during the United States' genocidal imperial war in Vietnam, which was drag the Soviets into an unwinnable long-term conflict against a local populace that didn't want them there. And while I have infinitely more ideological sympathies with the Viet Cong than the Mujahideen, and I am not a Trotskyite, in fact, I think we can all agree on the basic human trait that most people do not want an outside occupying force in their country. That is almost universally true, and obviously Afghanistan was no exception. The Mujahideen was funded by the Saudis and the CIA and the United States. The money and the weapons were funneled through Pakistan. General Zia-ul-Haq, who had taken power in the late 70s, deposing Prime Minister Bhutto, who he later hung, Benazir Bhutto's father, ran Pakistan in the 1980s while he shredded through the remnants of what had initially been a Muslim identified country, in the sense that Pakistan was supposed to be a safe harbor from Muslims after the partition of India, rightly or wrongly. Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, was a secular-minded independence leader. General Zia-ul-Haq, with the funding of the Saudis, the national security partnership with the United States, increased his own personal dictatorial powers, the power of the military establishment and intelligence establishment in Pakistan, and introduced significant, radical, and far-reaching religious draconian laws and rules that still distort Pakistani politics today. In the 1990s, after fueling a horrific civil war and resistance there, the United States pulled out without any interest in the long-term consequences of funding radical forces, letting weapons fly all over the place, and of course, other forms of blowback, like Osama bin Laden, who got his career start as a young Saudi sheikh helping the Mujahideen efforts in Afghanistan. In 1996, the Taliban took power, a young, religious fervent movement backed by the Pakistanis. There was strong interest in establishing diplomatic relations with the Taliban from the United States in the interests of oil pipelines. The Taliban would host Osama bin Laden, and after, of course, September 11th, the United States engaged in a punishing air campaign and invasion of Afghanistan, although, of course, key al-Qaeda forces and Osama bin Laden would deploy to Pakistan, and this double game would continue. Then that would also lead, of course, to the proliferation of the drone war in Pakistan, which has claimed thousands of innocent lives. Now, as we speak, there are peace negotiations between the Taliban, NATO, the United States, and Ashraf Ghani, the current Afghan president. This is in the same year that civilian casualties again have increased from U.S. and allied forces. This is a brief clip of Imran Khan, the Pakistani prime minister, meeting with Donald Trump a couple of weeks ago, discussing prospects for peace in the region.
I've been looking forward to this meeting since I assumed office. The words of Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan as he met US President Donald Trump at the White House on Monday. Top of the agenda for the meeting, the ongoing peace talks in Afghanistan. Donald Trump seized the opportunity to take a shot at previous US administrations by saying that Pakistan was now helping to bring both the Taliban and the Afghan government to the negotiating table.
They're helping us a lot now. I think they could have helped us a lot in the past, but it doesn't matter. We have a new leader. He's going to be a great leader of Pakistan. But no, I think Pakistan could have done a lot, but they chose not to. And that's because they did not respect U.S. leadership.
A decidedly more toned-down approach than in the past. Since President Trump took office in 2017, ties between the two had all but stagnated, with the US regularly accusing Pakistan of providing a safe haven to terrorists. Early last year, Donald Trump translated that criticism into action by suspending $300 million in US security aid to Pakistan for what he called lies and deceit concerning the country's anti-terrorism efforts. Pakistan, for its part, has blamed Washington for making Pakistan a scapegoat for its failures in the war on terrorism, insisting Pakistan has paid a heavy economic and human cost for its cooperation with the United States. But as it looks to withdraw troops from Afghanistan and end the 17-year-long war in the country, Washington needs Islamabad's support now more than ever. With peace talks still ongoing.
And of course, this is on the heels of a UN report finding that U.S. and Afghan government are responsible for most civilian deaths in the country, primarily due to airstrikes this year. The Pakistanis are under significant pressure, and they've always been under significant pressure. See, the Pakistani dynamic is that they need what they consider to be strategic depth against India. That is a friendly government in Afghanistan. That's why they supported Mujahideen forces. That's why they supported Taliban forces. And that's why they've consistently continued to support militant groups in Afghanistan. However, those groups have metastasized inside Pakistan, causing significant problems inside Pakistan itself, which in addition to Pakistani political instability, extreme inequality, U.S. interference, the presence of U.S. drones, environmental pollution caused by U.S. supplying and refuel routes have all contributed to a broader crisis in Pakistan. There are multiple factions inside the Taliban, including the Pakistani Taliban and those that the United States and its allies are negotiating with regards to ending the war in Afghanistan. Heroin production is also a major part of this. The U.S. has relied on the Pakistani intelligence service to maintain the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, and it has allowed the intelligence service to become a major have a major role in the global opium trade. The border between Pakistan and Afghanistan is as large as the distance from London to Moscow over rugged terrain. Throughout the past decades, the CIA, ISI, and the Taliban, its earlier and present formations, have been involved in the heroin market to varying degrees. You all will remember the previous Afghan government, significant members of it were linked to the heroin trade. In June, Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan and the Afghani President Ashraf Ghani held talks where Khan said that the successful peace talks between Afghanistan government and the Taliban were a quote-unquote shared responsibility. But even these talks have been derided in private by important figures in the Pakistani military who resent being implicated in the Taliban's power, in spite of their role in it. And it's important to understand that there are differing incentive structures inside the Pakistani power structure. Ultimately, the most significant sources of power inside Pakistan are the military and the intelligence services, the ISI. But there is a fight for judicial independence, and there is the effort of Imran Khan that has fizzled out steadily within the last year. But he did come into office promising a Pakistani social democracy based on Islamic values of public social investment. Those things have all evaporated in his year in office as he's gone across the Gulf and to the IMF and elsewhere in an attempt to keep the bare minimum of the Pakistani economy afloat. And again, in a place that is plagued by extreme income inequality. So the bottom line is that we are no safer. There is no better quality of life for anyone, but that there is a deep incentive structure from the U.S. military-industrial complex, the Pakistani intelligence military-industrial complex, various factions within Afghanistan to keep this going, even as it has consumed tens of thousands of lives. And we will be covering more of this. But that's a good primer. I do recommend people who are interested in more of this to check out Ghost Wars and Directorate S by Steve Cole. Those are both really exceptional books. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.